Hey, everyone. So we've got our first in a series of webinars that we're producing for the Pipeline to Practice Foundation, Things You Should Know as a 2L. And online, we've got a couple of our all-star guests. Hold on, let me push them up so you can see who's talking. Kahir, I got to say, the picture of you with the glasses, man, it's killer. You should definitely change your Tinder profile to that picture. Kahir is a recent graduate from Howard University, just started as a law clerk, will be starting at the end of September as a law clerk at Skadden's New York City office. Kahir, you want to just throw a little bit of color around your name and what you did and what you've done since passing the bar, or I should say since sitting for the bar exam?
Since or before sitting for the bar exam? Since. But as Don said, I went to Howard University School of Law in D.C. Before that, went to Hunter College here in New York City, where I'm from, Queens, New York. During my time at Howard, I served as the editor-in-chief of the Howard Human Civil Rights Law Review. And yeah, that's about it. I went to Morgan Stanley my first summer and was a summer associate at Skadden Arps in their New York City office my second year, and now coming on full-time in a few weeks.
Cool. Awesome. And we also have Paras Shah, who's a 3L at Harvard Law School, who just finished a summer associate position at O'Melveny out in, did you say Newport Beach, Paras?
Yeah, Newport.
Nice. That must have been a nice way to spend your summer.
Yeah, I went surfing. It was really a lot of fun right by the beach.
And are you planning to go back there, or are you going someplace else? And are you going to go back to O'Melveny or Newport or another city?
Planning to go to O'Melveny, D.C., so the firm has been really generous in letting me look at a couple different locations.
Nice. Awesome. Good for you guys. So to the folks who are listening in, both these guys are probably way too modest to tell you how well they did, in law school. But I will gladly, brag for them and also possibly take credit for it. I'm just kidding. It was all you guys. But the reason why we called you guys on this webinar is to assist students who are now rising 2Ls through the Pipeline to Practice Foundation with things that you wish you had known as a 2L, having recently gone through the process, and here in terms of you recently graduating. Not only things that you did, but possibly things that you would have done differently if given the choice now with a little bit of hindsight. So why don't we just jump into the conversation, and we'll take it from there. I guess I should probably introduce myself. I'm Don McCauley. I'm the president and founder of Barbary Law Preview, and I sit as a advisor to the Pipeline to Practice Foundation, which I'm intimately involved in, and probably one of the proudest things that I actually got involved in. Okay, so guys, in terms of, if you could both roll back Paras a year, here 2 years, to managing the job search. Many of the students who have gone through P2P over the last year are probably interviewing right now. What advice would you give them in terms of, as you're going back on callbacks, as you're thinking about where to accept an offer? What advice would you wish you had taken as for yourself, and in hindsight, what would you think you would want to? What would you want to have considered when you were going through the process yourself? And I'll start off with Paras.
Sure. So I know a lot of you have just finished on-campus recruiting and are doing callbacks right now. I think for me, going through the recruiting process, a lot of firms seemed pretty similar to me. So it was somewhat difficult at times to distinguish between firms. They all have similar clients, and they all have pretty similar practice areas if you're doing big law. But I think that one area where you actually can make some distinctions is firm culture. So it's a pretty nebulous phrase, and I don't think I really understood what it meant until I did callbacks. But what I would recommend doing is making a list of things that are important to you. So do you care about diversity? Do you care about work-life balance? Do you care about practice group? And as you're going through the interview process and you're talking to people, start making mental notes of those things. Start ticking off, what time do associates leave the office? Are you seeing the type of diversity in the office that you want to see? Does the firm support pro bono work or have a strong practice in the types of work that you see yourself doing in the future? And by kind of tracking that stuff mentally in your head, you can start to make distinctions between firms and figure out what's the best place for you, as you start to evaluate the different offers and options that you have.
That's great advice. When I also often counsel folks who are going back, through the callback processes as saying, look, you're interviewing the firm just as much as they're interviewing you. I mean, you want to walk in there with your eyes wide open, making sure that you're making mental notes, to things that, may be important to you, but, would otherwise, not maybe make, the normal person walking to the office who's not considering working there for the next 3 or 4 years would take note of. How about you, Keir? Any advice on managing the job search and things that they should be looking at as they're going back on the callback process?
Yeah, I think I echo both of your points. I think the recruiting process it's a little odd because it's almost like speed dating, where you don't really get to know a place too much and you're moving through a process very quickly. So I think it's best to prioritize, as was said before, like what are your values? What are you looking for in a place? Are you interested in doing pro bono work? Do you actually have an interest yet? Because a lot of law students don't. Like, I didn't know if I wanted to do litigation work or corporate work, so I wanted to find a place that during a summer I could at least experience both opportunities. Do you, when you start at the firm, will you have a rotation or do they throw you into a group? Stuff like that I think, you should be asking questions. And like Don said, you're interviewing at the place, but you're interviewing them as well. And I think a lot of people at a point will get a couple of offers and the ball is in your court to ask the real questions, ask if that person's ever taken vacation. And if they can't think of the last vacation they took, they probably don't ever get a chance to take a vacation. Or if you I ask questions at firms like, what's the last pro bono project you worked on? Because that's important to me. And if they're stumbling to figure out what the last pro bono project they worked on, they probably don't do that much pro bono work. So I think asking real questions and not being afraid to ask those questions, I think is important. And just really condensing your list as you go along, because the callbacks running back and forth, especially if you have you're going across the country to do interviews, it's a lot. And at the same time, you're still, a 2L going into school, going on a law review, moot court, or whatever you're doing. So trying to balance that out. You don't need to interview everywhere. And I think a lot of people forget that point.
So just like bringing it back a little bit here, like what is a rotation? And, for students who are, may not have the level of knowledge that you have, in terms of, having them understand what their summer might look like.
Yeah. So, and this sometimes depends on the city you're in and the size of the firm you're in, but say the firm I'm going to, Skadden, in their New York office, they're corporate groups. There are many different corporate groups. Some groups are smaller than others. And you should know which groups are smaller than others because typically those are harder to get into, and you're sort of competing a little bit more than if you wanted a bigger group that your firm had. And then there's the litigation group. So some firms may just have general litigation, but some have a lot going on. And say Skadden, if I chose litigation, I'm not rotating, meaning when I start my job, I'm going into that group. But in corporate groups, they ask me to rank 3 or 4 groups, and I then, depending on my choice, depending on how many people actually pick those groups in my summer class, you get those groups. So mine is mergers and acquisitions and corporate finance, and I rotate. I believe it's like a 6 to 8 month or something rotation in one, and then another 8-month rotation in the other. So you get to experience two groups. But so those questions should come up when you're interviewing, so you never get to a firm or wherever you're going, and then you figure out you're in a group that you had no interest in and doing work you had no interest in. So just making sure you ask those questions up front.
And for us, is that a similar experience that you had at O'Melveny, or is that something different?
Yeah, so every firm does this a little bit differently. So O'Melveny didn't have us do formal rotations within practice groups. So they did split us between litigation and corporate, and they tried to give everyone at least one litigation assignment or a corporate assignment. So no matter which practice area you were in, you did one of the other side's assignments just to get a sense of what it was like. But I was in the general litigation group, and I just had a lot of different types of litigation assignments. So I did some memo writing, legal research and writing. I did some doc review. I did a lot of different tasks that are associated with litigation, but I didn't have a practice group or a specific area that I looked at, so I just had general assignments.
And are you planning to go to litigation or a corporate-like career?
Oh, definitely litigation. Corporate is way too technical for me.
Well, good for you. Like, you'll be a real attorney. I'm proud of you. All right. We can we can poke fun at the corporate folks. All right. Okay, get excited about like doing a lot of FedExing and faxing. I'm excited for you. All right. Or PDFing these days.
Or doc review.
Yeah, I will say that generally I think different practice groups also have their own personalities. So pay attention to that. Not only like the size, but also kind of notice like, do these people, are they more, do they tend to be more aggressive? Do they tend to be more laid back? Like you can kind of get the sense and the culture of different practice groups. So also just be aware of what fits with you and your personality.
Cool. So I'm assuming like by just knowing both of you guys and knowing your backgrounds and knowing how well you guys did, that you had competing offers. What was it that made it that allowed you to choose one firm over the other? When you were boiling it down, what was it like that really boiled it down to you say, okay, Skadden's where I want to be, or O'Melveny's where I want to be?
For me, it was really the people at the end of the day, where I felt I had the most mentors going in, and a little bit about brand as well. But I think I really came down to, I believe I was thinking about two firms at the end, and I went to I did second visits at both firms, spoke to as many people as I can, people inside the firm, and I think just as important as it is to speak to people inside the firm, it's just as important to speak to people outside of the firm to give you sort of an outside perspective, people from other law firms who can give a different critique that an associate may not want to give, depending on the type of relationship you have with them. You may not want to tell the bad stories and stuff like that. So I think it's important to speak to outside folks as well. So ultimately, it was sort of, I looked at my life and wanted to know where I wanted to be in the next 5 years, as well as where I wanted to be in the short term. And as I was saying before, I didn't know if I wanted to do corporate or litigation work at the time, so I wanted to experience as much projects as I could over a summer, which Skadden allowed me to. So it really came down to that, people, and just the brand going forward, and my brand, personal brand as well.
Anything different, Pross?
Yeah, I echo a lot of that in terms of the people. They made a big difference. Everyone made me feel really welcome, and I felt like it was a firm that was invested in me and cared about the same things that I cared about. So I really wanted a firm that was committed to the community, to pro bono work, and to diversity. So O'Melveny for me checked all those boxes, and that kind of made it an easier decision.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So they the old adage, I'm sure you guys have all heard, right? The first year they scare you to death, or the second year they work you to death, and the third year they bore you to death as you're waiting for the bar exam. So, for students who are entering the second year, I would imagine that time management is a big thing, in terms of, not only juggling their classwork, which they, was probably their sole focus last year, but also other extracurricular activities, whether it's journal participation, moot court, extracurriculars, and so forth. So, for us, how did you manage that last year? In terms of, right now, the folks who are going to be listening to this are folks who are, probably in the midst of, OCI and or callback interviews, and probably worrying about, why aren't they attending evidence class, and a journal edit that's probably due next Tuesday. How did you find the time to manage, your time there?
Yeah. I think it's kind of an interesting split between 1L and 2L and 3L, because 1L, you don't have any kind of flexibility over your schedule, and then 2L and 3L, you really have all the flexibility in the world, so it's a really hard split to kind of get used to. I think that there are a couple of things you can do. First, you have to prioritize. So, your classwork should come first, but then you can also choose how many units you want to take and what type of classes you want to do. So my approach to law school for 2L and 3L is that I really wanted to get involved with clinical work and do hands-on training. So I did environmental law clinic 2L fall, and I did international human rights clinic 2L spring, and I'm doing advanced international human rights clinic 3L. So for me, clinical education was a really important thing.
First of all, that's awesome. I love hearing that, especially, because there's so many lawyers out there who are unhappy with, the tactics they take in terms of going to making, rich companies richer. And, hearing somebody who's going through the process right now and giving back, I love it. I absolutely love it. So thank you.
Yeah, I think the work is rewarding, and it's also a super practical way just to build really good skills. So environmental law clinic, I drafted a complaint that we filed in DC District Court, and human rights clinic, I went to Geneva twice and presented at the UN. So it's, lots of practical learning skills that you develop along the way too. So I did those, and those took a lot of time, and then I had journal and I had class. So really what I would do is try to set aside time on the weekends to do my clinical work or journal work, and then you can also set your schedule. So spring semester especially, I tried to balance my schedule in a way where I didn't have class on Fridays and had pretty light class on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, days that I knew I would have more work for other things. So you can build your schedule around that, and then also just prioritizing and remembering that your schoolwork always comes first, and then trying to just set shorter deadlines. So if you have a lot of stuff due for journal, how do you break that up? Can you do one section, 10 pages of editing the first day, like another 5 pages the second day? So making all those tasks more manageable is really helpful.
Right. Did you do moot court or any kind of extracurriculars besides the clinic?
I did human rights journal, and then I also got involved with a lot of diversity efforts on campus. So I actually did a hackathon with Diversity Lab and a bunch of law firms and general counsels. So that was another interesting extracurricular, and we actually ended up winning the hackathon with our team. So that was really exciting over the
Congratulations. Summer. That's awesome. Awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Kier, do you even remember your second year? I mean, it's now 18 months away.
It's all a blur, but I do remember how weird the shift was from 1L year to 2L year, and just hearing him just speak about sort of the time management. I do remember that was like a bit of a crunch trying to figure out how to manage everything. I was on the law review at the time, so managing, editing, work, and it's sort of a new thing to learn how to do edits, and you're also writing your own note depending on what your journal requires. So I was writing a note for law review, taking classes where you have a lot more sort of initiative. The professors by your 2L year are not sort of spoon feeding you as much as they were 1L year. They're really just it's more complex classes, more interesting classes, and you have autonomy to pick at this point. So trying to figure out that workload as well. That was a lot. I think you just have to stay organized, and you can really get through it.
What about in terms of for folks who have not started or maybe are just getting their first journal assignments? In terms of hours, like, on the average, what did you guys spend, with a journal assignment?
Well, your first one is probably going to honestly take the most time, because you may have to redo it. I remember I had to redo my first edit, because you're not only editing the substantive, not really the substance, but the grammar and stuff of an article, and at the same time
Right.
you're looking at their sources, so you're actually having to research the sources and make sure they're valid, and if they're not there, depending on the extent that your journal wants you to, you have to go find where they got this assertion from. And every journal has their own way of doing things, so that process probably took me, and depending on how big your journal is as well, mine was maybe 20 people, so 5 hours to get through maybe 7 pages of grammatical editing, and then another couple hours to just find all the sources and put them together and compile them into an actual organized document to send back.
But once you found the hang of it, you found it to be what? In terms of budgeting for these kids, because
I think once you get through the first one and the second one, it becomes second nature, and then your blue booking skills become very quick, and at that point you know how to read an article and what you're looking for, what edits that you're going for. So it goes down to probably 2 hours, depending on how many pages you have.
Dude, I just checked my forums while you were saying blue booking, and I think I broke out in hives. So thanks for that.
That's right.
I mean,
that's right.
I haven't thought about blue booking in a long time. Even making it a verb is even worse. So Parag, in terms of your journal experience, what can kids, or I should say students, who are rising 2Ls expect to spend, on a journal?
I think my journal commitment was relatively light. Like, we only published twice a year, so that made it easier. I think during the periods where I had actual assignments, it was pretty intense. So it happened to also be right around finals. So I remember I was trying to outline and also scrambling to find this book that I had to order from interlibrary loan from Canada, and that was really annoying. Make sure you always pin cite. People get really annoyed if you don't pin cite. But I think probably it was anywhere from 2 to 5 hours a week, so not super burdensome. And I think also you should just do things that you're interested in personally. So if you're really interested in business law, then join the business law journal, or international law, do the international law journal. That helps to build expertise. It helps to get you networked and get you contacts in the field too. So, or if you're interested in oral advocacy, you should do moot court. So that's another thing about 2L. I think there's a real tendency to put a lot on your plate. So you have to be a little bit selective about what you want to do, because there are so many opportunities. So kind of think about either, is there a particular area of law that I want to learn more about, or are there skills that I'd like to develop? And that's kind of how I picked extracurriculars too.
Gotcha. So you both have gone through the summer associate programs at your respective firms. Are there classes that you think were valuable as 2Ls to take? Probably, I would imagine anybody who's listening to this now is planning for the spring semester, or maybe even classes that you wish you had taken to prepare you for a summer associate position. And we'll start off with Paras. What's that?
Yeah, so I wish I had taken evidence, and I wish I had taken corporations, which I'm doing both as a 3L, but I think as a 2L, it would have
How
been
did they
useful
not
to have
teach
that.
evidence? How did you not take evidence in corporations as a 2L? That was supposed to be a softball question. Right, Harvard. What is going on at Harvard that they're not making you guys take those? Oh, good Lord, got to go. I'm sorry. So yes, those are called the core electives, right? Aren't they? Or they should be.
Who knew? Not here. I don't know. I took international. I took comparative constitutional law and international humanitarian law, so I had a great time too, but I don't know how practical it was. So you should take evidence.
You guys also talk what do they do at Harvard? Do they talk about whether numbers exist, or does property exist? Is that your property class?
Yeah, it's pretty theoretical sometimes. Some high level stuff. What are the normative values behind property? But corporations and evidence. I think legal writing also. If you can take a class on maybe advanced legal writing or classes that allow you to hone your writing and research skills, those are super useful because a lot of what I did at the firm was just being on Westlaw and finding cases and really honing my research. So if you can take classes that allow you to write a paper or to do that, it's really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because as a 1L, and I don't know how it's weighted at either one of your schools, but pretty universally that legal research running is generally weighted not very heavily in your GPA. However, it's probably the most important class you will take in law school, period. Because that is one thing that you'll be doing for the next 10 or 15 years of your practice. So, Kayer, did you take evidence or corporations in the 2L? Please say yes.
Yeah, they were actually corporations wasn't required. Evidence is required at Howard, and I'm glad it was because after taking the bar and studying with some Harvard and other students, and them trying to figure out evidence was a frightening sight, to say the least. But
we're not going to beat up on Harvard students too badly this year, all right? But okay.
Right. Yeah. But I wish, and this is sort of the reason I picked a corporate group at the firm. I wish there were more classes on sort of the stuff you do in corporate law. I think a lot of it isn't actually taught in law school, like how to write bylaws for, say, a nonprofit organization or edit articles of organization for a corporation or LLC or whatever you're doing. I think that wasn't really taught in law school, and that kind of made me more interested in the work, kind of figuring out all this new stuff, like what a merger was. And you may have taken corporations and gotten the basic understanding of it, but it wasn't as intense as it's probably going to be when you start working. And when I did litigation assignments, I think, yes, the writing, the research skills are definitely necessary, and that's just sort of what made me say, oh, my God, the first litigation assignment I got to go on Westlaw, and I was like, oh, man, I forgot my Westlaw password, or how to use Westlaw, and I jumped right back into the corporate groups. But yeah, I wish I took more classes that dealt with corporate work. So if you have the opportunity, I know some schools have a mergers and acquisitions class and or corporate finance class. I would definitely take it. I took a corporate counsel class, which helped. Just understanding what a general counsel does for a corporation. I think that definitely was good.
Yeah, I remember showing up for my not even my summer associate program, but as a full-fledged associate at a large law firm in Manhattan when I graduated from law school, and being handed my first securities litigation assignment, and I'm sitting there thinking how do I tell these folks I've never taken securities lit, and why did I not take securities lit? So yeah, I guess you sort of look at the firm that you're going to, you sort of understand the practice group that you ultimately want to join, and then ideally, during your spring semester of your second year, you're taking classes that, will lead yourself into that program, rather easily, rather than, being handed your first securities litigation assignment and be like, oh my God, there's a 1934 Act? What does that have to do with anything, that I've ever done before? All right, so let's hit off the final point, and then I'll let you guys riff about things that were important to you, or things that you'd like to pass down to students who are coming up behind you. But in terms of networking, what did you find in terms of networking both inside and outside of law school during your second year? How did you build your network? How did you maintain your network? Did you write thank you notes or thank you emails to folks that you interviewed with? How did you keep in touch with the folks that you were ultimately getting employed with? I'll throw that up to either one of you.
I guess I'll start. I think networking actually sort of expanded a lot more in my 2L year, because you have a little bit more time, or you're a part of American Constitution Society or whatever organizations you join, or clinics. You have a lot more opportunities to meet lawyers sort of outside of your professors. As far as after applying to jobs, whether I took the job or took the offer or went somewhere else, I made sure to try to keep in contact with, people you built a connection with. Like, you may have turned down the firm, but you had a great conversation in an interview with an attorney. And I don't think most people will hold it against you if you choose to go somewhere else. So there's still partners or just associates that I met when I interviewed that I sent emails to. And if I was in New York, because I went to school in D.C., I would say, hey, could we get a cup of coffee or dinner or a drink? And most people are receptive to that, and we'll meet up. And then I think at the firm you're going to go to, it's almost even more important to, if you have the opportunity to, be in people's faces every chance you get, talk to recruiting if they have an event, and you just want to, meet more people or help out. I think those relationships are important. And then on the outside of your job, just, kind of taking in the experience of being in different organizations, or if you're on a law review, and you really enjoyed the writing of an attorney, or reach out to the attorney. You have an in with that person to talk about the piece they wrote. You have the opportunity to do more research and stuff like that. So I think just sort of dive into networking at this point.
Yeah, and I think for me, internally within the law school community, going to office hours, and, I know Don says it during law preview, but build relationships with your professors. So if you did that 1L, just keep doing exactly what you've been doing. Especially during 2L, it's really nice because you can act as a research assistant for professors. You can get to know them and talk about career options. And I think a lot of faculty are really receptive to that. So I, tried to meet with my professors pretty regularly. They've been really helpful and really good resources. And then a lot of times firms have receptions on campus. So if they have a, reception, it might not just be for 1L, but you can always stop by and talk to firms then and get to know people. Or if your firm is having a reception. So Melvin had an on-campus reception and invited us. So I went and talked to a lot of different partners from offices that I wouldn't get to work with over the summer, like New York and DC. So that was a good opportunity to meet some of the partners from different offices and different practice areas. Also, if you're involved with any of the bar association chapters, so a lot of them have local chapters, and there are also, affinity group-oriented ones like South Asian bar associations, and took advantage of that, too, to meet people.
Oh, sorry, guys. I was actually on mute. I apologize. I was asking if did you guys do any kind of part-time work during your 3L year? I don't know if O'Melveny and or Skadden offer part-time work sort of to get you guys into a a practice group and or doing work with attorneys within the firm by doing research for them while you're a 3L.
I did not.
Not. Yeah. That might be a vestige of like an older time where where I have gray hair to prove that I was of that time. So thank you, making me feel really old.
I definitely tried. I think you gave me the advice to reach out, but yeah, I think it doesn't exist as much anymore.
Damn it! It was real money back in the day. All right.
Yeah. I didn't do it either.
Did they offer it at O'Melveny or no?
No, but I know that smaller firms or like mid-sized firms do offer it sometimes. So it might just depend on the firm or the size of the firm, but I think it's pretty rare for big law.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, no, during my third year, they would literally, train me down from law school and put me up at the Yale Club in New York, and then let me work 40 hours over the weekend, and then train me back up. So it paid for spring break my third year. So, but if it's not offered anymore, then shame on law firms. And at least I got one good thing up on you guys, you millennials. Anything else in terms of things that you wish you had thought about and or done as a 2L that would have prepared you for both your summer associate program, maybe your third year of law school, maybe even the bar exam?
You should definitely buy stretchy pants because law firms feed you a lot over the summer, and I tried to go to the gym. It was really hard. But I think that's emblematic of the wider thing that your summer associate position is going to be intense and busy and stressful, and it's really enjoyable and really fun. But just go with it with your eyes kind of open and realize that it is still some work, and it'll be fun, but it'll also be intense. So I kind of wasn't expecting that initially.
That's fine. Especially for somebody who's coming off the road for a very tough summer of law preview, where I'm like, I think I put on 30 pounds in summer by eating hotel food.
Yeah.
Peter, did you put on a lot of weight with your steak dinner or steak lunch at McPalm in Manhattan?
Oh yes. It's funny because before the call, Don's asking me what have I been doing. I've been going to the gym obsessively to lose the law school weight I gained. But yeah, I think that's a serious thing. Just some people put it into their schedule while they're in law school. I know friends who would be at the gym at 5 a.m. or the opposite end of the day at 12 a.m. And me, I was just I had a gym in my building. I'd be no, I'm just gonna knock out. But if you could incorporate, just doing that, I think it's definitely important. But to the bigger question, what I wish I learned, or I think in retrospect, we go through these law school processes and summer internships or whatnot, and don't really take it in as much as we should. And I think my third year law school being on Law Review, I'm being the editor-in-chief of the Law Review, really helped me just sort of understand to take it in as far as, what you're writing, what you're discussing. The discourse of law school is important, and I think that it's evident almost every day, especially in the country right now. So I think take it in, and law school matters, being a lawyer matters, in the classes you're taking, whether you have no interest in it or not, it matters. If you don't want to be a criminal attorney, I think the bar makes you take that course for a reason. And as much as we joke about it and, why do I have to take evidence? I think it just makes you a better attorney, even if you have no interest in being a trial attorney. So, just taking it in.
You should take evidence. Do it.
You're stuck on evidence for us. I love it. But and listen, I'm a big believer in that you don't wish your life away, and you sort of just live in the moment, and everything that's fed to you at that moment. So for us, like, enjoy your third year of law school. Don't wait, to sort of wait around till I can take the bar exam and/or start at O'Melveny. Every year that I get older, I look back and I'm like, man, did I waste a lot of time worrying about things that didn't matter, and/or things that I was just excited about happening, where I didn't really live in the moment. So, Kira, I love that. I love the fact that the advice would be sort of just enjoy law school. Whether you think you're going to use that class later on or not, you'll be shocked about some of the stuff that they're teaching you. It actually really doesn't matter. I'm happy. I'm happy to leave the interview, there. 18 minutes back to you guys to enjoy the rest of your evening. I know that Housewives of New York are starting at some point too. The reunion show is starting tonight, so I know that you guys both are if nothing else, I should say, want to feel good about your life, just watch that show and be like, wow, thank God I didn't end up one of those crazy women. So I'll leave it on that. But thank you guys so much for all your time. You guys have generously given back to students who are following in your footsteps. I'm a big believer in not only in advancing your own life, but also leaving the ladder down for folks to climb up at least to your level, if not higher, after you. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to do this.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm happy to talk with people as well. So if you want to pass my contact information, feel free, and I'm happy to talk offline with people as well.
For us, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And Kyra, I'm not going to give you an opportunity to share your contact information, because I know you're just looking to add people to your contact list as a master networker. All right.
No, they could definitely shoot me an email, text, whatever. I'm open.
Cool. Awesome. Guys, really, thank you so much. I really appreciate your help. All right. And I think this is really valuable for the students coming up behind you.
No problem.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye.
You too. Bye.